people outside, walked through the wall, and then became physical again on the inside of the cabin. They tapped the man on the shoulder. He was in the next room. They tapped him on the shoulder. The second night, he came in again. They made noise every night like that to let us know they were there, because I asked them to. And the woman was sleeping in the bottom bunk, and she heard a bunch of noise beside her, and she thought it was her friend, that he was down going through the pack looking for something. So she just opened her eyes and looked straight down, and there was a moon, the shine of the moon coming in through the window, and because it was almost a full moon, and she looked down and she could see a hairy leg and foot right beside her, because it was going through some things laid up on top of the pack. So the last night there, he came and poked me in the arm. I was sitting there drinking some water at the edge of the bed, and it startled me again. I jumped, turned around. Of course, I couldn't see anything. He did this from another dimension. So these are some of the things that they do. I had a man from Pennsylvania visiting me back in July, and he had seen them 17 different times, and they talked to him one time. So while he was here visiting me, he slept on the couch, and during the night, the last night he was here, there was a tremendous thud, and it woke me up immediately, and I thought, oh, I guess he's got up to use the bathroom and must have knocked over a book or something. And so the next morning I got up, and he said to me, hey, he says, did you hear the Sasquatch walking around here last night? And I said, I thought that was you. And he said, no, it was a Sasquatch. He was walking around here and looking at stuff. I said, well, I don't know what he did, but he made some noise. He says, yeah, I don't know what it is either. So I never could figure out what he did to make the noise. But this is what they do when they're friendly with people. They come in and visit and those kinds of things. It's just the nature of who they are. I'm merely objectively reporting exactly what they do. Why they do it and how they do it, they haven't told me that. I doubt they ever will. But they want to come out sometime in order to stop us from destroying the environment, and they know if they just come out outright that it would turn into a circus. So they want their people to be safe, and they'll probably, if we have some major catastrophes in this country, they'll come out and help the people that they know that are good people. Those that want to shoot them and stuff, they won't help. They'll just leave them be.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to help somebody when they're trying to shoot at you. That's a problem I found. Now, there's a lady, speaking of them being friendly, or maybe overly friendly, there's a lady that lives not far from WRFN Studios here in Kingston Springs, Tennessee, and she's told her story on Coast to Coast with Art Bell, to Art Bell, as a matter of fact. Her name is Teresa, and she had she thought her house was haunted because the doors kept opening and shutting, and they've got these latches where you have to physically lift it up. I mean, it's a big, heavy metal iron latch type thing. It's not just going to accidentally, it's not going to. It's either shut, and when it's not shut, it swings open automatically. So it's not just going to sit there, and then all of a sudden, you're not going to stomp the floor or something and make it move. But she had experiences like that, and hearing footsteps, and that was all well and good. She wasn't that scared of haunting activity, but then she laid down on her bed one night in a fetal position on her right side, she said, and something scooched up against the small of her back in the bed with her, and she thought it was her cat had jumped up in the bed, but when she rolled over, there was nothing there. And then she saw actually invisible fingers touching her breasts, which got her attention. And a few days later, as she was going down the mountain there, she had a sighting of she estimated 8.5 foot tall brown Sasquatch that walked over to the fence line, looked over his shoulder, and telepathically communicated to her that it's me. I'm the one that been hanging around type thing. And then he stepped into a blurred circle and disappeared at the fence line.
Yeah. A friend of mine here back in March was out in the forest with a friend, and they were came across this field and were looking, and his friend said, "Hey, look, that looks like a mirage when you see the heat coming up, but except it wasn't hot or anything, and but they could see just in one spot this waffly kind of energy, and all of a sudden a Sasquatch stepped out, looked around, glanced over at him, waved to him, and stepped back through the portal." So this happened not far from where I live back in March of this year.
Yeah, on my second physical sighting, I actually waved to Sasquatch, which was, I was with thank God I wasn't alone. I had a scientist with a lot of credentials with me who actually spotted the Sasquatch at the beginning and was saying, hey, I can see his face. I'm looking right into his eyes. And he was kind of leaning out from behind a couple of trees at the point of the river there. The Harpeth River flows through Montgomery Bell State Park. And when I slowly waved, because I had learned from experience, I'd tried to chase him just to get a glimpse of him, but I didn't want to run him off. And so I just slowly waved, and when I did, he just stepped out from behind the trees and just stood there. And we just stared at him for 4 or 5 minutes, and I don't know that we had any telepathic contact, but we just kind of looked at each other, and I walked slowly towards him and told her to keep an eye on him. But when I got about halfway to him, I went down in a little gully, and when I came up out, he was gone. She said he just went behind the tree and disappeared.
He was still right there, near you. He was right there, but he was in another dimension.
Right, and it was just a few minutes later when I described the experience of sitting on the tree stump and having the rocks. I mean, they weren't just like it couldn't. There's no way it could have been falling acorns. I mean, if I threw a rock as hard as I couldn't crack it off of a tree as loud as this was. It was really loud, and it was right beside my head, but it was consistently not hitting me. So I let it hit like 8 times before we finally left.
Well, there's a situation, like I just came back from speaking down in San Jose, California, down at the Bay Area UFO Expo.
Right.
And this man came up out of the audience after I gave a talk, and we talked for a while, and there were several people who have had experiences that were in the audience. And this particular man told me that he was living in Colorado, and his 17-year-old son, he took elk hunting with him and deer hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So they were out in the forest, and they separated, and they said they'd meet back in a little while to a certain place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his son, 17-year-old son, was standing there, and beside a tree, and just looking around, and all of a sudden he heard this noise coming towards him, which was a deer with it was a male with lots of points on the antlers and everything.
Uh-huh.
And it ran right by him, and all of a sudden, also right by him, he heard some noise, and he thought somebody was running right up to him, but it just went swish when it went by him. And he thought, what the heck is... He thought somebody was running, chasing the deer. And all of a sudden, something grabbed the deer, picked it up about 15 feet in the air, but all he saw was this deer that he claimed weighed probably 175 to 200 pounds, and was thrown against the side of a tree, broke its back, and killed it immediately. But there was nothing there. And he was like in a state of shock. He was a young kid, and so whoever did this picked up the deer by the horns and was dangling it out in front of the kid.